that you were working on last class. Take out your questions. Okay, number one, who is the speaker in this poem? Justify your answer. Who do you think the speaker is? Jason?
I think it's the poet himself because the poem's in first person.
Is that the only reason?
I mean, that's the only reason that I've written down.
So you think that if a poem is written in the first person, that's necessarily the poet's experience?
No.
Just because it's in the first person is not necessarily the poet's experience. All right, but it is in first person. Okay, good. Chelsea, what do you think?
Yes, I wrote the same thing.
Just because it's in first person?
Yeah.
Leba, what'd you get?
Miss, I wrote the same thing too.
Come on, somebody give me something. Megdeep?
He uses the words my and me in the poem. So.
That's the same thing. That's first person. Siddharthan, what'd you get?
The same thing.
Harsimran?
Same thing.
Oh, for God's sakes, guys, put your thinking caps on. Okay, so it's told in first person, but also because he's writing about his experiences with poetry and becoming a poet, right? So that could, the subject matter tells you that it's the poet who's the writer, okay? And that he's writing about his own experiences. However, you should also note that oftentimes in poems, there will be, the author creates a speaker and takes on a persona. So the poem might be more universal than personal. It might represent the experience of, discovering your passion, for example, okay? And might be more universal than personal. All right, number two, how does the character of the speaker change from the beginning of the story to the end? Note specific evidence in each stanza of how the character describes himself. So how does he change? Jasmine?
The character of the speaker significantly changes from the beginning of the poem to the end. In the first stanza, the speaker is describing himself as ignorant and untouched. In the second stanza, the speaker is describing himself as trying to interpret his new gift, but knowing nothing of how to use it. And the speaker describes himself as becoming enlightened.
In what stanza?
In the third stanza.
Okay, I couldn't hear you very well. Okay, you need to speak a little louder, or maybe your mic's not working very well. I'm not really sure. All right, Kian, what did you get?
I said the poem shows the process of the speaker's character buildup.
And what is that buildup? How does he change?
He discovers poetry and everything to him is, I don't know, like, that's what I put.
Kian, that is insufficient as an answer. It asks you how he changes in each stanza, which means that they are asking you for direct evidence. I'm not pleased right now. Let's keep going. Tasia, what'd you get?
I said the same thing.
Same thing as what?
I said
what did you say?
I said that the poem showed I said the poem shows the how the speaker
Are you making this up right now?
No. But
Well, then answer.
I said the poem shows the process of the speaker build up.
Okay, that's neither here nor there. That doesn't really answer the question.
Yeah, I didn't give specific.
Okay, Amy, what'd you get?
I said how once he discovers poetry, it seems to open his eyes to like see the world a different way.
Okay, good. You guys were also supposed to quote actual specific lines from the poem. It asks you each stanza. Okay? So, for example, the speaker begins by saying, I was without a face. See, direct quote. I didn't know what to say. My eyes were blind, meaning that he doesn't have a sense of who he is. So, at the beginning of the poem, he doesn't know who he is, and he doesn't really know what he's searching for. Then, the first line where we see that his self image is changing is when he says, I made my own way. Okay, so despite his uncertainty, the speaker has the confidence to take a risk and try writing. However, he's not completely confident at this point in the poem because he calls himself someone who knows nothing. Then, after the line, and suddenly I saw, the narrator describes himself as an infinitesimal being, drunk with the great starry void, likeness, image of mystery, myself a pure part of the abyss. So you see how he feels like poetry has made him infinite like the universe. That because of poetry, he can reach out to others over time and space. He is intoxicated with the vastness of space that he has to fill with words. We see this when he's talking about the universe being infinite, the vastness of the abyss, the vastness of space. So you see that throughout the poem, at first he doesn't know who he is, he doesn't know what he's in search of, but then he slowly makes his way. By the end of the poem, he has discovered poetry, he's confident in his writing, and he feels that he can free his soul and by writing poetry and take great risks in his writing. That's how you answer a question. 3A, what kinds of images are used most often after the line and suddenly I saw? Cite specific examples. Maya Career? Harsimran?
The kinds of images that are used after and suddenly I saw are like universal images, like plants in heaven.
Very good. The universe, the heavens, space, planets, very good. A starry void, the abyss. And B, how does this imagery contribute to our understanding of the speaker's thoughts and feelings when he first encounters poetry? Gian?
The imagery makes the reader feel like his first encounters with poetry is something so great and it changes his whole life.
Very good. It's something great, okay, but it's also something large, something profound, okay? When he's talking about the heavens and the universe and the planets, this experience is something profound. And words like abyss and void usually have negative connotations, but here they are positive as the speaker explores the unknown and explores this gift of poetry. Okay, so this whole experience is meant to be universal. It's meant not only to be the poet's experience with poetry, but our experience with that particular activity we have in our life that brings us a sense of wonder and joy and mystery. Okay, we all have an activity like that. We all have an experience like that. 4, a paradox is a contradictory statement that when examined carefully actually is true. Explain how the speaker's first lines of poetry could be pure nonsense, pure wisdom. Sudharsan?
At first, when he wrote his first lines, he just did it in a burst, so it didn't. He wasn't guided in his thoughts, so he said it's pure nonsense. But at the end, he put his words to it, so it's pure wisdom.
Okay, good. It can also suggest that, sometimes words that seem like pure nonsense, like let's say we're brainstorming ideas, what we put on the paper may seem like nonsense, but if we look more closely, there's actually some ideas there behind that brainstorming, behind those kind of like point form notes that we just jotted down when something came to us. Okay, so they may appear like nonsense, but there might be some substance there. All right, let's look at our next poem, page 47. So the subject matter of this poem is like the poem poetry, okay? It is a poet writing about their passion, and in this case, it's writing, okay? And in this poem, the narrator breaks with family tradition to pursue his passion of writing. The poet seems to be speaking about himself in the poem. He is Irish, and his father and grandfather were potato farmers, and they expected him to do the same. But he broke with that tradition to pursue that which inspired him, which was writing. Okay, so let's read the poem. Follow along. It's called Digging. Who's got their mic on? It's making noise. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, snug as a gun. Under my window, a clean, rasping sound when the spade sinks into gravelly ground. My father digging. I look down till his straining rump among the flower beds bends low, comes up 20 years away, stooping in rhythm through potato drills where he was digging. The coarse boot nestled on the lug, the shaft against the inside knee was levered firmly. He rooted out tall tops, buried the bright edge deep, to scatter new potatoes that we needed picked. Loving their cool hardness in our hands. By God, the old man could handle a spade, just like his old man. My grandfather cut more turf in a day than any other man on Tonner's bog. Once I carried him milk in a bottle, corked sloppily with paper. He straightened up to drink it, then fell to right away, nicking and slicing neatly, heaving sods over his shoulder, going down and down for the good turf, digging. Koa, can you shut your microphone off? The cold smell of potato mold, the squelch and slap of soggy peat, the curt cuts of an edge through living roots awaken in my head. But I've no spade to follow men like them. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests. I'll dig with it. Okay, so this poem is a little different from poetry in that the language is very different. It's not that sort of beautiful lyrical language that we saw in poetry, but the subject matter is very similar in that they're both talking about something they're very passionate about. All right, so you're going to answer questions 1, 2B, and 3 and 4. And those are on page 53. So 1, 2B, 3, and 4. I'll give you about 15 minutes, and then we'll take it up. Think he is digging? Support your interpretations with evidence from the poem. So, how does the narrator dig with a pen, and for what do you think he is digging? Althea? Althea? Oh boy.
I think the speaker version of spade is pen, and he is metaphorically saying that he will use the pen as to dig.
Okay, very good. Yes, the pen is a metaphor for the spade. Okay, very good. And he's using the pen to dig. But what is he digging for? Alan? Alan?
He's digging for some sort of like closure with his writing, is what I got.
Closure with his writing? How so, my dear? What do you mean?
Cause like, I'm not sure how to explain it. He was trying to. Sorry, miss, I'm not sure how to explain it. That's like what I kind of understood.
Okay, but you have to be able to explain it. I'm not saying it's wrong. Sounds good. You look okay, but I need an explanation.
Yeah.
Okay, Japney, what did you get? Japney?
Yeah, 1 second. Like, I think when he says, like, digging with a pen, he means that, like, he means instead of, like, being a potato farmer or, like, digging like his grandfather and his father, he wants to be a writer.
Okay, very good. That's what the poem is pretty much about, right? So in the poem, okay, he is digging for details about his family history, and most important, for his place within his family. He's digging to understand what makes him similar to his family, to his father, to his grandfather, and what makes him different from his ancestors. So he's digging to understand his place within his family. because he pretty much separated from them and didn't follow the family tradition. So he's digging to find his place within his family. All right, 1B. In the lines between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, snug as a gun. What quality or qualities does the poet suggest a pen shares with a gun? Aiden?
I put that it can be similar because a gun and a pen can both be very powerful. Like,
okay, and how are they powerful?
So like a gun because it's like deadly and powerful, and then for a pen, because you use a pen to write poetry, and poetry is very like emotional and powerful.
Okay, very good. And it's kind of like a new thing to call a pen a gun. I've heard this before, right? So we say that, like, Aiden, can you shut your mic off?
Sorry.
We say that the writer's gun or the writer's weapon is his gun or her gun, right? So we can understand that, the power of words and how words can be a weapon, and they are the weaponry of the writer's craft. All right, C. There are no other references to weapons in the poem. Does the simile belong in the poem? Why or why not? What do you think? Megdeep, do you think the simile belongs?
I don't think so, because he could have used a shovel instead. Like a grip of a shovel is good as a pencil.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. He could have used a shovel instead. It doesn't seem to belong. I think it would be more sense to compare the pen to a shovel, right? And since in the last stanza, the narrator says that he will dig with it, he's going to dig with his pen. So the gun does seem to be a bit out of place. But it also kind of underscores the difference between the narrator and his father and his grandfather. It gives him like a different tool, I guess. They have the spade, he has the gun. Also, because a spade is used for digging, you're taking dirt out of the earth. Whereas with the gun and with words, you're kind of like projecting something into the world, right? It's like bullets going into the world, right? Your words, okay? So in that way, but I still don't really think that it belongs. All right, good. Number 2. 2B. 3 generations are presented in Heaney's poem. How is the narrator different from his father and grandfather? How is he similar to them? I think we already touched on this, but Sarah?
I put that he's different because he doesn't like share the same desire to work like on the fields like they do. But I also put he could be similar because he does have that desire when it comes to writing.
Yes, he's following his passion like they do, right?
Yeah.
And like his father and grandfather, the tools of his trade have brought him a sense of mastery and purpose. Okay, good. 3. How does Heaney appeal to the reader's senses throughout the poem? Cite specific words and phrases that reflect what the narrator sees, hears, and smells. Okay. Visual images. Where am I? Samir?
He appeals to the reader's senses by describing the scenery quite clearly and sounds going on. When this, wait, I don't know what I wrote there. Yeah, that's all I wrote.
No, Samir, it asks you for specific examples of words that appeal to our senses. Okay? Give me something that appeals to our sense of sight. Maya Rambali?
Okay, so one that appeals to sight is the soggy peak, the curd cuts of an edge. He was
A little louder, please.
Okay, so when he says the soggy peat, the curd cuts of an edge, he was talking about like a potato, and before that, he was talking about how you could smell the potato mold.
Okay, so smell would be to the soggy the cuts of the potato would be sight,
And
but
then
the soggy the mold would be smell, right?
smell, yeah.
Cold smell of potato molds. Yes, that would be smell. Okay, good. What else, Ozazi?
For C on stanza 2, I put under my window a clean rasping sound when the spade sinks into the ground. Gravely ground is implying that he can like see his father digging.
What about
Like that's
clean
a
rasp? What about clean rasping sound? What's that?
sound.
Yeah, that appeals to our sight of sound. How can you use that sentence and say it's sight? What about the squelch and slap of soggy peat? That appeals to our sense of sound, right? Visual images, his straining rump among the flower beds. Bends low, coarse boot nestled on the lug. And then, of course, the sense of touch. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests. The shaft against the inside knee and levered firmly. And new potatoes that we picked, loving their cool hardness in our hands. That one right there, their cool hardness in our hands. That appeals to our sense of touch. Okay? So he has these sensory details everywhere in the poem, right? And why do poets and authors include sensory details? So that we can close our eyes and see, hear, smell, taste, touch what they are describing. It makes it more real. Okay, before we take up number 4, I am going to assign you another poem. So I'm going to put up the instructions for the poem and you're going to copy them down, okay? Okay, so copy down these instructions. Okay, so we have read two poems now where the speaker in the poem is writing about something they're very passionate about. Okay, in both cases, they were writing about poetry. So you're going to be writing a poem on something that you're very passionate about. Okay, something that brings you a sense of wonder and joy. It could be reading, it could be music, it could be a certain sport that you play, any activity that brings you a sense of freedom and escape and wonder and joy. So first of all, you must have a distinct rhyme scheme. So in some of your narrative poems, it was clear that you were rhyming, but there wasn't a specific rhyme scheme that you followed throughout the poem. So this poem, I'm going to mark a little harder. Okay, I was easier on you with the narrative poem because it was your first poem. Okay, now you've gotten, you've already practiced a bit. So I'm going to mark this one a little harder. So first of all, you must have a distinct and clearly identifiable rhyme scheme. Secondly, it must be organized in stanzas. A stanza is like a paragraph in poetry, and like other forms of writing, it reflects one particular topic or idea or thought. Okay? Also, each stanza must be an equal number of lines. So if your first stanza is 4 lines, then that means all your stanzas have to be 4 lines. Remember that lines in poetry are short. So I told you guys this last time. I had a couple of people who either wrote very long lines, okay, where like one line was the entire width of the page, okay. That's not what poetry looks like. You've read like 4 poems now. Look at what the poems look like. A line in poetry is short. Then I had other people where basically they were just continuing the thought on each line. There was no end. It was like, one line would end with the word and then the sentence would continue on the other line. You can't do that. Okay, so look at the poems, look at what the lines are like, look at how they express a thought. Okay. Also, a lot of grammar and punctuation errors in your narrative poems. I didn't mark them that hard, but I will this time. Grammar and spelling count. Make sure your poem is free of grammatical errors and it is properly punctuated. Again, you must have 3 figurative devices which are clearly identified at the bottom of the poem. Write the device, for example, metaphor, and then write the sentence from your poem that reflects that device. Your poem should be at least 20 to 25 lines. It should be number 12 font, double spaced, and follow MLA format for submission. Is everyone finished copying? Yes? What did you guys do? Take pictures? You can't all be finished copying already. I only give you 5 minutes.
Yeah, Miss Wade, I'm still copying.
Okay. Are there any questions about the poem? Okay, so it's going to be due this Friday, okay? And you're going to be submitting it again online, okay? I will create the assignment tomorrow, or by Friday, I'll create the assignment. And remember that this Friday in our online class, you are going to be presenting your narrative poems, okay? Part of our poetry unit is that we share our poetry. So you're going to be sharing all the poems that you write with everyone in the class online, okay? And it's always interesting to listen to everyone's poems. You're going to enjoy it, okay? Any questions? Okay, let's just take up that last question, number 4. What was the question? I closed the book. Does anyone have the question?
I have it, Miss. It's
Okay, what was the question?
It's quote the line where the first flashback begins. What sparks this flashback? Where does the second flashback begin? What prompts it? What purpose does each flashback serve?
Okay, good. So the flashbacks, what did you come up with? Harsimran?
Okay, so I said, under my window, a clean rasping sound is when the first flashback starts, and it's sparked by a sound, I think. And then the second flashback started, by God, the old man could handle a spade just like his old man, and it's prompted by him comparing how his grandfather and father use a spade. And each flashback's purpose is to take a reader back in time in order to understand the past events in someone's life.
Okay, very good. But isn't there a flashback of him remembering his father when he was younger? Did anyone get that? Like, I know the one you said about him comparing his father to his grandfather. That's definitely a flashback. But wasn't there one of him looking out the window and remembering his father when he says 20 years away. So he remembers 20 years ago. That's it, when he says 20 years away. Okay. All right, good job. All right, did everyone copy? Can I stop presenting? Okay, remember, guys, poetry is about digging deep, looking into your heart, okay, expressing what is your innermost thoughts and feelings, okay. So when you're thinking about, when you're writing these poems on the activity that you're passionate about, try to really capture how this activity makes you feel. Okay, try to be as descriptive as possible. Use sensory details, use vivid adjectives and verbs. Okay, and as much description as you can. You want to capture how it makes you feel and be able to relate that to the reader. Any questions? Okay, so I will see 1B in class tomorrow, right? Cohort B. I will be collecting your comparison essays. And make sure you bring in your Echoes textbooks because we're going to be doing short stories. So bring in your Echoes textbooks. All right, guys. See you tomorrow.
Bye, Miss.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Bye. Bye, guys. Japney?
Yeah, miss, I had a question. Um, so the essay is due in class tomorrow, or it's due by the end of the day tomorrow?
No, it's due in class tomorrow. I want to collect it on paper.
Oh, okay. And how long should the conclusion and introduction be?
I don't know how long they should be. I don't know. Half a page?
Okay. It's single spaced? Like, do
No,
we have to have?
everything is always double spaced, Japanese.
Okay. That's
Okay.
how we, and we hand it in double space, right?
Yeah, everything is double spaced, MLA format.
Is it okay if it goes a little bit over 5 pages?
Yeah, okay.
All right. Thank you, miss. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye. Koa, do you have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah?
So for the powerlessness point, I have a the powerlessness the argument. I have the point that the first one is that you cannot, like, the characters, they cannot fight for their own benefit, and the second one is they cannot change.
They cannot. Just a second. They cannot fight for what?
For their benefit.
For their benefit?
Yeah, like I have the evidence in the Animal Farm that the 4 pigs that they cannot speak their voice when they know that something is wrong on the farm, like like when Napoleon he canceled the meeting on Sunday because it is wasting time, and then these four pigs they want to speak out, and then they want to speak for their benefit, but when they stand up and the dogs and with the sheep, so they can like stop them, it make them scared. So can I say that? So can I say that this is the powerlessness that they cannot fight
Yeah.
for their own benefit?
Yeah, okay.
And for the second one, it is Melly is too scared to fight back to cow, and then she have to do everything that cow say. Is that a benefit?
Well, yes, okay.
And for the second point, like I have like I think it is similar. Like the first point, it is they cannot fight for the benefit, and for the second point, that they cannot change their fate.
They cannot change what?
They cannot control their life.
Yeah, that's good.
Like it is the same or is different? I think
No, it's different.
different. I miss and if they 5 pages, so what happens if I write more than 5 pages, like around 6 pages or some stuff like that?
No more than it's 5 pages, so no more than even 6 pages is a bit much. No more than that. Okay.
Miss, and for the transition between the paragraph, like I'm someone you next, right? Like next, then or what else?
There's a lot of transitions. I can't go through them all with you.
No,
You
like,
have to look them up.
I know it like just so I have to use like just for example like next and then, right? So like some stuff like the transition between paragraph.
Well, you should be using transitions when you move from one book to the next. So your transitions should be things like similarly, correspondingly, in the same ways, things like that.
So I don't have to use the transition for the paragraph, like when I move to the first paragraph to the second paragraph.
From the first and second what?
Paragraph.
No.
Yeah, miss. So for the examples in the My Book of Life, like in the detail that like when Cal he realized that Angel she has the tattoo on her shoulder, and then she beat her. Like when I use the example, so it's gonna show like he beat me. Like when I use the example, like so can I write it like he beat me, or I have to change like the word me to the word Angel.
I understand what you're saying. You have to copy the quote exactly as it is in the book.
Can you wait me a second? Check it.
Okay, cool. Be quickly. I have a workshop after school, so I have to go.
Yeah, sorry, miss. So in
I
this
have
one, but then he saw blood on my shirt and he looked. He punched my wing until it wasn't a wing anymore, just a bruise with feathers. Like so in this one.
What's your question?
So like in this one, so I'm gonna use like the word like he punched my wing. Like so, can I use that for example, or I have to change like he punched my wing from he punched Angel's wing?
You have to. It depends. If it's the quote, it has to be exactly as it is. If it's your example, you'd write he punched Angel's wing.
Yeah, but when I use like, well, I have to say exactly what the quote is, right? But if I have to say exactly what the quote is, so it's gonna be he punched my wing. It's not he punched Angel's wing.
Listen, Koa, it's whatever is in the book. It has to be taken. Your quote is exactly what appears in the book.
Right, miss.
Okay?
Yeah, miss.
Okay. Bye, Koa.
Bye, miss.
Bye.
Mason, so do you have to do any poem for today? Like any work about a poem? Like,
No, just work on your essays.
okay. Thank you, Miss.
Okay.